ndeko na ngai video yango oyo potala ngona na Londres ondimake biso awa na Congo tozolanda bino makasi.
C'est la bino est très suivi awa.
Biso moto.
Hi, welcome to Accompanied by Jess, and my name is Jess, and on this platform we discuss the sensitive, delicate, private things of our generation or the youth in today's society. Due to the sensitivity of these stories, I do not disclose their names and I do not tell you, but I give you fake names. I think for those who are my usual viewers, you would know this, so let's get going. So today I have a story for you, and it's about a young man named Francis, and he's of the age of today 24. This was discussing what the topic says, "Mommy, I'm sorry, but it's too late." So Francis actually emails me and told me about what had basically happened and kind of where he's at today. He's actually a very low state today, and it's led him in a lot of issues. He's actually been in and out of hospital, being diagnosed with actual severe depression. And here's actually why. I'm going to actually tell you where it started from. So the story starts from when he was 15. Francis was living with his parents in secondary school age. His father moved out and he was just left with his dad, and that kind of, kind of got to him at that age, because now your parents are not together, they've gone through a serious divorce. He's also an only child, so he hasn't got any siblings, he's an only child. His parents has been divorced, his mum's now a single mum raising him, and the dad doesn't appear anymore, he just doesn't contact them. So he's at secondary school, he's doing well in his studies, and then once the divorce was happening, his behaviour changed. He became very aggressive towards his mum, very aggressive towards his peers, and at school his behaviour really changed from that age. Heading up into college, he then associated himself with a gang and he began taking a few drugs. So he was smoking marijuana, taking marijuana, and he was having cocaine. He had friends that were really bad, crazy lifestyle. Many of the times in the night, his mum would be woken up by police, searching for him, looking for him, and literally because of that, it caused a lot of quarrels between his mum and himself. And during that period, he would basically blame his mum as to why his parents separated. Eventually, it got too much for his mum to handle, and by the time he reached not even his second year of college, he was kicked out. And not too long after, his mum kicked him out, and he was now living in a hostel at 17. So during that course of time, it's just been really hectic for him. He still continued the wild lifestyle despite staying at a hostel. He still continued doing so, and then yeah, that's what's been happening with him. Eventually he got a phone call after a year or so of living on his own that his mum was diagnosed with breast cancer. So he heard about that from his auntie, and he decided to try go and see his mum and fix their relationship. So he was unable to actually find his mum because he had been completely out of contact. He just hasn't responded to her. He was only in contact with some family members, and his auntie happened to be one of those that he was in contact with from time to time. But this was an auntie that was from his father's side, so this wasn't from his mum's side. From his mother's side, it was from dad's side, because on the mother's side, many of the families were living outside of London, very distant to Francis himself. So from that period, he heard, and he tried to go back to his house, but his mum wasn't living there anymore. Literally no contact whatsoever. He was phoning his auntie and asking, where she was, and trying to trace back where she was, which she did. The auntie did help him out eventually, because at the time she didn't know, but she just heard that she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that's what was happening with her. So he eventually did find his mum, and it was a very awkward moment. And he said he walked into her new flat. It was a 1-bedroom flat, and his mum was quite a healthy woman, well fed, and he walked in and literally he broke down. He broke down in front of his mum, and his mum didn't even recognize him because of how different he just looked in the space of that short period of time, how different he looked and everything. She didn't recognize him at first, and he had to kind of insinuate, look, it's me, you know, I know I've been gone for a few years, like a year or so, but I'm back now. And reconciling that relationship didn't go so well, and here's why. And yeah, he was telling me he broke down when he saw his mum. His mum had already shaved all her hair, and she'd lost quite a few weight. So even he didn't even recognize his mum for a minute, and he was thinking, you know, because this woman was quite well fed, and you know, she was, you know, she just looked really good, really healthy, pretty active, you know, and she was literally, she looked so brittle. Literally, she looked like if you poke her, she's gone. So he was really, he broke down in front of her, and he tried to reconcile and speak to her about, you know, what the situation had happened at hand. And it came to his surprise that as he was talking to her, the mum sat quietly listening, and what was meant to be something that was meant to be restored between the two of them became something where the mum didn't actually want to speak to him. And she was like, she was complaining. She was like, where were you when I needed you, and where did you go? And you know, you look so different, I couldn't even recognize you. Are you sure you're my son? You know, she was asking so many questions. She just didn't, she had a lot of bitterness. She had a lot of bitterness, and it was really hard for Francis to even comprehend all of that, and it made him even more angry, and they started to fight actually. Something which was meant to be something of peace, to come together, you know, my mum's fate, and you know, she might die anytime soon, ended up being a quarrel between the two of them. Like she didn't care about what was happening with herself. She was very bitter towards Francis, and she was very bitter. And the reason why she was bitter, as Francis was telling me via email, was that she lost a lot of friends growing up, and she didn't have anyone around her. So anyone that she would open up to and be kind to would kind of really disappoint her, and they would pierce her, and it made her very bitter. And so when it was time for her husband and her to reconcile, she wasn't reconciling because she was bitter towards, you know, all the people that had left, and now her husband and her weren't getting along, and he did a few mistakes prior, and they just weren't getting along. They really just weren't getting along, and it literally left her bitter. So when Francis had left, she was literally on her own. Even getting in contact with some of Francis's father's side of the family was really hard for the mother. She opened up about that, and it was really hard for him to take it in, to be honest. So, you know, time went by. After that argument, they left. Time went by, and he still fought to see his mum, because at the end of the day, that's my mum, and you know, he needs to check on her. He doesn't want his mum to go. He's the only child. The mum's literally on her own, and he knows where she lives. So he tried to call her, and the phone wasn't going through. He tried to message her, phone wasn't going through. Eventually, he decided to actually turn up at the house, and so sad when I heard the story. So he turned up at the house, and he knocked on the door. He was waiting there for like about an hour, hoping that she would come back. and he realised an hour had passed by. He went to the neighbour's house and asked for her. And the neighbour said, no, she's been in. I saw her last night. And now she's definitely in the house. I haven't heard, like, you know, she hasn't left the room or anything like that. So they kept knocking and knocking, and it came to a concern of the neighbour. They literally had to call the ambulance and knock the door down. And unfortunately, they found his mother's body laying on the living room floor, and she was just in, like, Francis couldn't handle it, and he felt that he was the cause of his mother's death. And because of that, it led him into severe depression, and he had been admitted to hospital. His one aunt that he was in contact with, he was probably the closest family member to him on his father's side, was the one that kind of helped him a little bit, despite she wasn't as close to, she was a mediator, so she was not too close to the mum, but she got on well, and the mum could at least speak to her a little bit, but they weren't really the closest. And she heard the bad news, and literally he got admitted to hospital. He was telling me about his hospital experience. He said many times he was sitting in the hospital bed, and he literally would want to take one of the doctor's equipments and stab himself and just take his own life. It got to a point where whilst he was in the hospital and being diagnosed, whilst they were, you know, examining him, he actually wanted to go all the way at the top of the building and jump off. And had it not been for the nurses who were actually in the hospital, he would have taken his life away. And he's done this multiple times. He was telling me that he tried to drug himself and literally tried to lock himself in the bathroom and fill up the tub with water and literally just dive in and stay on the water. And due to these several attempts, he's been prevented of it. And he thought to actually, why not try and contact someone for help? So I received this this message from him, and I want to say, Francis, you are a very brave young man, very brave. And in terms of brave, in terms of the fact that before, you know, your mother's death, you try to reconcile your relationship, you try to mend it, and you tried your best to speak to her, despite it didn't end that well, and despite, you know, that night in particular, it didn't end the best, but you still went back to still seek her. Do you know what? Like any other child, it is very difficult losing a mother, and especially now that you don't have your father again, and he's nowhere to be found, and not even on his side. I remember you writing it in the email that, you know, on his side, they don't even know where he is. So I really feel for you, and such a situation can make you bitter, can make you like taking your own life away, can make you feel like there's nothing for me to live for, because everyone that I needed have left me. But do you know what? I just want to say, you know what? Thank the Most High that you had your one auntie who was at least there to inform you of what was happening, to try and reconcile the relationship between you and your mum before she had gone. I'd say keep her very dearly. Keep her very dearly, and do not feel like you should take your life away because of the very bad circumstances you faced. It is easy said than done, and you know, many people haven't been in a predicament where they've lost, you know, someone that close, and I just couldn't, you know, the level of pain you're feeling right now, I can only just say, you know what, if I were with you, I would just literally hug you and just literally hold you, because it is not easy. It is not easy at all. But my only, you know, advice to you is that see ahead. you know, your story today that you have shared and you have boldly come out with, despite all the things you've gone through and everything that you've carried, you know, upon yourself, is now helping someone today. Somebody out there is probably going through the same situation or even worse, you know, even worse. And I know there's been stories of, you know, both parents going, and like, you know, it's not easy. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your story. You're brave in that area to even, you know, let your story be heard. But aside from that, have courage. Keep getting help, psychological help. You know, psychiatrists would help you. Having someone that you can look to as a mother figure, I would personally recommend your aunt. See her as a mother now, because she seems like she's willing to help you and support you, especially knowing where you have come from. You know, so that's really all I can say to you. Take it all easy and take your time in healing. Take your time to see better in yourself and see someone that sees so much in you, that will speak good things over you, that will encourage you, that will look at your goods and what you love to do. And I would say devote yourself into what you are passionate about. I know you lived a fast lifestyle, you know. You were doing a lot of things in terms of drugs, in terms of cash, in terms of all these things, and you know, you tried your best to resolve the situation and you tried to pattern it down. Thankfully, you know, you didn't, you know, despite your many attempts, your life wasn't taken. And I feel like because your life wasn't taken, it makes you so valuable, so valuable. And there's a reason why you're alive today. You have a great purpose, and you have a purpose to help others and to encourage others through your story. And I will not lie, you are a strong person, to be honest. So use your experiences and what you've faced and what you've gone through to make it better. And I believe with the necessary help that you've been given in terms of going to hospital and getting the treatments, diagnosis, these people will help you to get yourself financially, mentally, emotionally, physically in a better place. So yeah, that's all I can share with you. So thank you so much for your story, and yeah, I wish you the very much best. Please do keep in contact with myself if anything is needed. That would be very useful. At least you know that there's a listening ear on the other end as well, and something that will continuously keep encouraging you. So that's what I'm here for, to be honest. Yeah, so that was today's story. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know the story was very despite brief but very delicate. However, we are all, like, you know, Accompanied by Jess is here to share your story, and at the end of the day, it will help someone else. It will educate someone else on life lessons and what they need to do and where they can find a sense of encouragement. You're not on your own, and that's what Accompanied by Jess is here to do for you. It's here to share that you're not on your own. We are all going through something. We all have a story, and behind every great person there is a story. So if you are, you know, happy to share your story today, you know, please do contact me on accompaniedbyjess@gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to hear your story, and all stories are kept confidential. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back next week Friday at 6:30. Please do tune in live on Boss Brothers TV. Thank you for watching, and have a good night. Bye bye.
ndeko na ngai video yango oyo botala kuna na Londres, ondimake biso awa na Congo tozolanda bino makasi.
Chaîne na bino eza très suivi awa.
Biso